So let's go into Dylann Roof, the Charleston shooter terrorist, the right-wing white supremacist racist. Let's get all these words in there because they're all perfectly describing Dylann Roof. Let's get into his manifesto, which was discovered over the weekend literally by two people on Twitter, Henry Krinkle, at Henry Krinkle, and at E.M. Quangle. They found Dylann Roof's manifesto. And before we get into that, let me go into a little bit, because there are actually some conspiracies out there that this was a hoax manifesto. It's not really his. Because two anonymous Twitter users found it, and God forbid, we all know that there's not real people behind these two users who found factual, true, real information. So let's get into how they found it and how it is impossible it's fake, really quickly. They found his information, his website, on domaintools.com. Domaintools.com is a business, a website run by a company. It was founded in 2002. And since 2002, its job has been to basically provide information on domain names, such as the whois information, which is basically when you register a domain name, whatever.com, you put in your information. There's domains registered to, your name, your address, your phone number, your email. It also archives that information, so it has historical whois data, so it can tell you who owned such and such domain before the current registrant registered that domain name, if the domain name wasn't registered for the first time. It also archives IP address data, DNS information, which basically, in the short, shows where the website is hosted, where the domain name has a website that hosts, where that host is located, et cetera, et cetera. It also does some stuff that archive.org does, which basically takes screenshots of a website throughout certain parts in that website's history. Try not to get too technical here. So basically what these two Twitter users did was, one of Domain Tools' products is they have historical whois data. Apparently, Dylann Roof, before he went out on his mass shooting, and sometime in between that time and February of 2015, when he registered the domain name lastRhodesian.com. I mean, if it could be any clearer, the white Southern guy wearing a jacket with the Rhodesian flag, a white supremacist South African country, was now known as Zimbabwe. You know, not many people wearing that emblem on their jacket nowadays.
No, the apartheid South Africa flag and the Rhodesia flag.
Yeah, so this guy wearing those emblems on his jacket and all the photos he posted himself online, okay, maybe lastRhodesian.com isn't enough to connect that website to Dylann Roof. But from the historical whois data, it shows that early on in the domain name's history, in February, Dylann Roof, before turning the whois information private, which you can do for a fee through domain registries, it had his personal information, Dylann Roof, his name, and his mother's address. Now that was cached, saved information as seen in February of 2015. It was unaltered. It's not possible for Domain Tools to alter it unless they did it themselves. They're a business. I doubt they did that. It's impossible for these two Twitter users to do it, because you yourself can go to domaintools.com, go to lastRhodesian.com, sign up for a free trial, a 7-day free trial with Domain Tools, because there's a paid service. Type in lastRhodesian.com, and you will see that in February, it had his information there, unchanged, as archived by Domain Tools. What these Twitter users did, because it was private now, and they couldn't go to lastRhodesian.com and find it, Domain Tools has another product where you can type in someone's name, and for $49, get a list of all the domain names that were ever registered under that person's name. You can do that too, spend $49, and get that information. lastRhodesian.com is connected to Dylann Roof. If it was a hoax in any way, someone back in February had to have known that Dylann Roof, with two N's, last name Roof, with this Dylann Roof's mother's address, and registered lastrodesian.com knowing this guy was going to do this back in February. And then write a very specific screed that fits the ideology behind someone who would perpetrate such horrific terrorist acts against an African-American Southern church down to a T and write those down. So no, this is not a hoax.